Now I'm very excited to welcome for the first time to this podcast, Mr. Kelley Ford from We Hate Your Team to this podcast. You can follow Kelley on Twitter at K4Rays. Kelley, how the heck you doing this week? Did you survive Halloween?
I did survive Halloween, just barely, Kiev. It was a great weekend of college football, of course. Have a couple young children, so they enjoyed the trick-or-treating, lots of candy to hand out. So I appreciate you having me on. It's going to be a lot of fun talking Week 10 college football here coming up. But yeah, it's been a great season so far and more to come as we're excited about it.
I feel like I'm overwhelmed with candy right now. There's candy in every single room. There's buckets of it. I don't remember even coming close to the amount of candy that is given out these days, and it's like kids just take a handful now. You know, before it was just trick or treat, grab one little thing, and it might have been this little maybe hard candy or something. But now these are massive candy bars kids are getting. Man, I gotta stay away from that stash. I already dipped in, man.
I do not need to have any more candy, as you can see, and it's certainly tempting. But yes, I've got to keep feeding it to the little kids here because my body doesn't need any more. That's for sure. But it is hard.
I know, man. I know how it goes. Well, it was a great Halloween, and now we have college football Week 10 on deck. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about you, Kelley, and the We Hate Your Team podcast?
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to come on in the first place and to share a little bit about We Hate Your Team is awesome. So We Hate Your Team is a podcast that my buddy Zach King and I started during the 2021 college football season. We went to college together. We were in the same fraternity. And so, we graduated nearly 10 years ago from Purdue. And we talked during our time there about, man, we're always talking sports. We always have this back and forth. We should do a podcast. And this is, again, 10 years ago, a little bit before podcasts were so common like they are right now. We were like, yeah, one day we might do a sports talk show or whatever. And it never happened. It never happened. We've gone our separate ways. I live in Indy. He lives in Chicago now. But I was a guest on a podcast called Statistically Speaking at the beginning of the 2021 college football season that's put out there by Kyle Umlang and Blinken Riley, a couple of Texas and Oklahoma fans. And I had so much fun on that podcast, Kiev, that I was like, you know what? I kind of want to do this for myself now. Like, I don't want to just wait around to be another guest on another one, which actually the 10-12 network, Philip Slavin reached out and said, hey, Kelley, you want to come on ours and be a guest? And I said, sure. And after that second one, I was like, all right, I am hooked. I'm convinced. I reached out to Zach and said, we got to make this happen. Like, let's get a podcast going. We'll talk college football every week and it'll be fun. So we put a poll out there on Twitter of what should the name be and how often should we do it and all that stuff. And we settled on a name, We Hate Your Team, because we thought it was one, kind of catchy, but two, kind of one of the core foundations of the podcast is based around my K Ford ratings, the predictive rating set that I have created in recent years and have really started sharing publicly in the last few years. And one of the questions that I got a lot when I first joined Twitter was, Kelley, why do your numbers hate my team? Why do you hate my team? Like, my team's winning a lot. How come I'm not more highly rated? Why do you hate my team? And so I feel like I got that question multiple times every single week. And so when it came time to make a podcast name, I said, King, what do you think about We Hate Your Team? And he was like, I love it. So we rolled with that. We talk college football once a week. We have a guest on every single week. So that's what makes it really exciting. We pick the 10 games in the ESPN Pick'em competition. And then we have a season-long competition going at confidence-style points of who between King and I, but then also with our guests and with all of our listeners and everyone that's jumped in that competition, who can have the most points at the end of the year. That person earns a guest appearance on the podcast as well. So we pick games, we talk college football, and it's been really, really fun to have our own podcast and to be able to get our voices and opinions out there and not have to rely solely on being guests on others, even though I really enjoy that, which is why I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Oh, well, that is awesome. We had a great breakdown. And, it's funny. There's a lot of talk about why do you hate my team this week with the college football rankings out there?
Yeah.
Central Florida made it in. You got Tennessee number 1, which everyone's freaking out about. And I saw a poll out there, only 11% agreed with it. And I guess as a sports bettor, that Tennessee's not really 1. I mean, they're the most deserving right now. It drives me nuts. There's nobody. People have to say, look, this is not the top 10 teams. It's the teams that are undefeated and deserve to go in so far, right? Isn't that more a fair way to say it?
Exactly. I think so. And yeah, that's why I have 2 different metrics that I that I generate, that I create. I have my Kelley Ford ratings, which those are power ratings. That's what you would use as a better, what more in line with what Vegas would have of who would be favored over who on a neutral field tomorrow. And then I have my most deserving rankings, and those are resume based. So those ones look backwards. Has nothing to do with who would be favored over who, but who has accomplished the most in this season to date relative to what the average top 25 team would be expected to accomplish against that given team schedule. So in my own numbers, I have Tennessee most deserving ranked number 1. So I think the committee got that right. I think they are the most deserving team relative to their schedule and what would be expected of the average top 25 team to achieve against that. But in the power ratings, I have Tennessee actually for the first time all year. They've cracked the top 4. They've been in that 5 to 7 range really since about week 2. For the first time this year, just this week, they just slid past Michigan, and I have them power rated number 4 though. But to your point, they're number 1. Well, we're gonna get to the game in a second, so I'll share some of that when we get to the game. But
Right.
yes, the committee's rankings, in my opinion, and I think they would say the same, should not be viewed as this team would be favored over this team if they played tomorrow. We're going to see Tennessee, Georgia here this weekend, but it's who's achieved the most to this point, and I think that's the way it should be.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And I think after a full schedule is played, if you're still undefeated, then they really got to look into the situation. We remember UCF being knocked out of the top 4, and they beat Auburn, of course, in the bowl game, and all hell broke loose. So I enjoyed that because I personally think there should be more than 4 playoff teams. But either way, I love chaos, and I also hate my teams too. So we have something in common. I hate my teams; they suck. But I have no excuse for them. It's like you can pick them apart. I agree with you. I'm never going to be that guy coming at you about that. But I love how you do that too. I think it's great that you have your own power rating system, and I really love the fact that you show people deserving. There's a massive difference, and check out KFordratings.com so you can actually see that. It's a fantastic way of portraying college football right now. I saw something on your Twitter handle about getting married during football season. What do you think about Robert Kraft getting married during the fall, man? What's going on here?
I mean, yeah. So one, I'm a Colts fan, right? So the Patriots have been our nemesis for a very long time, and I know the rivalry maybe wasn't always two-sided since they seem to get the better of us more times than not, and it's died down a little since Peyton and Tom have both moved on to different things, but or different teams or things, I should say. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very strong against fall weddings. It is in my Twitter bio, ban fall weddings. I don't think they should be taking place on college football Saturdays. So I'm against it. Robert Kraft's a billionaire, I think, right? Or at least a multimillionaire. He can do what he wants. He can marry who he wants. He can do whatever. But I got to question his fandom of at least college football to have that wedding in the fall. I don't like it. If he would have invited me, I would have said no. That's for sure. So. And not because I don't like him as a person, but hey, man, you can't be scheduling that on a college football Saturday. Come on now.
Oh man, it's funny. It was always for me back in Madison. I didn't like when people got married on Badger game day because everyone went down to Badger game day. That was the thing to do. It's
right?
like you go down and party, have fun, and someone getting married. You better be a good friend, and then you'll get tissed a little bit later for having a Badger game day wedding. So
that's right.
That's how it was. Now it's just like for me as a sports bettor, I guess that's someone that does it a lot more and cares about it than back into the late 90s and the early 2000s. I definitely am against fall weddings as well. So I think it hurt Tampa Bay even more, so
definitely.
It seemed like Tom Brady was still hungover when he played that Sunday.
Yikes! So, yeah, it's not nothing's good in Tampa Bay right now with that team. And again, I'm more in the college space, but yeah, it doesn't take an expert to know something's not right, things aren't going well, and maybe Tom should have stayed retired. I don't know.
Maybe he should have. But let's get into this massive card of games. It's a big week in the SEC, as we both know. And being that you have power ratings, you can talk sports betting, my man. And I'm excited to get into that with you. Why don't we jump right into one of the big games this weekend, Tennessee versus Georgia. And I wrote down -8 total at, is it 66 still? I have to check an updated number, but I'm curious where you think this spread should be. and possibly any other information on the total or if it's bettable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I should just as a disclaimer, I do have totals obviously with my numbers, but my rating system is really geared towards optimizing the spread and trying to get the spread right. So I wouldn't trust my totals basically as far as I can throw them, but I have had success providing information about spreads and what the K Ford projected spread is relative to Vegas. So I'll probably keep my comments more towards the spreads during our conversations. But yeah, this game this weekend, Tennessee, Georgia, it's going to be incredible. It's 1 versus 3 in the committee's rankings. I actually have Georgia ranked number 5 in terms of deserving this week. I don't think they've done quite as much with their schedule as they're getting credit for, even though they have dominated their schedule, which they're expected to do as one of the top teams in the country. I have Tennessee most deserving 1, as we said, power rated 4, but I have Georgia power rated 3. And when you have the power rated 3 team at home to the power rated 4 team, obviously the 3 is going to be favored. My numbers actually like Georgia in this game by 9.5. So I do think, I think if you would have got this number last week, it was somewhere around 12 or 13, I think I saw. So clearly Tennessee's demolishment of Kentucky, and that's what it was, made an influence here. And I know Georgia took care of business against Florida as well. It got tight there for a second in the middle, but then they pulled away. I do like Georgia in this game. I think Sanford Stadium is going to be rocking. They haven't had a game this big there in quite some time, with the SEC East on the line, a trip to Atlanta on the line, possibly a trip to the college football playoff on the line, even though I would argue the loser of this game definitely still has a path, but they might need a little bit of help depending on how other things shake out. This is going to be an absolutely phenomenal game. Georgia, to me, has been in the top 3 all year in the power ratings. Tennessee peaking right now at number 4, like I said, but I do like Georgia to win this game. I have a 75% win probability for them to win it straight up, and I think they are going to cover that spread. Not a lot of value, right? There's only a 1.5 point difference between my numbers and the Vegas line, but that's actually pretty good. Usually my numbers are real close to Vegas, if not right on. So I do think that Georgia covers this game, and I think that environment's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Well, that shows great power rating if you match the market that much. Obviously, when you get later and later in the season, if yours aren't matching the market somewhat, it's a you problem, my friend.
Exactly.
That's kidding. I actually have Tennessee as my 5th best team. I have Georgia as my 2nd best team in my power ratings, but the distance did, even though it kind of, I guess, is like an xylophone kind of smashed together. Them Michigan moved up towards Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State over the last couple of weeks. It's still not quite there. And my number's exactly 8.5 in this game from a power rating perspective.
There you go.
But here's my problem, man. I still would lean the points just because that's how some of these big games have been going. Shootouts, nonetheless. And it's you look at it, it's such an important game. But is it that important? Yeah, I started thinking about this again. Ohio State and Michigan is going to have a loss, right? One of them, at least. And so the one-loss SEC team gets ahead of at least Michigan via schedule. So it's not even that bad of a loss. I almost wonder if it's almost like less pressure. I'm 1 loss and I'm going right to the playoffs. It almost feels like that because you're not going to take a 1-loss Oregon over them because Georgia smoked them. You're not going to take a 1-loss USC because their schedule hasn't been all that good. I don't. Maybe you look in the Big 12 or Clemson, it'd be really tough to argue over them. So even though it's a big game, I find it funny, Kelley, that both these teams should be in anyway.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily disagree. It is interesting. It's an interesting dynamic because both these teams are undefeated. They might get that mulligan to play with. I think the risk you run is that Alabama Alabama or Ole Miss, I suppose, one of those teams with 1 loss is out of the SEC West, wins the SEC championship against the winner here, because now you're behind 2 teams already. You're behind if you lose this game, you're behind you're behind the team you just lost to, and you're behind Alabama or Ole Miss, whichever wins and is the SEC champs with 1 loss. Now you've got to hope that Clemson or TCU drops one along the way, because if the winner of Ohio State Michigan's undefeated, that's 3 spots gone. And now if either Clemson or TCU is undefeated, or even a 1-loss champion, now you're comparing 1 loss to 1 loss, and the committee has in the past valued that conference championship as maybe a tiebreaker. So I agree with you. There's absolutely a path, and the loser here still has to feel good. Hey, we still have a lot to play for. but I'd still want to win this game just to give you that inside track to Atlanta. That way, if you get to Atlanta 12-0, you're in, period. Doesn't matter if you win or lose this game. We saw it last year with Georgia. And if you win this game, I mean, I'm looking forward at the schedules. Tennessee's got versus Missouri, at South Carolina, at Vanderbilt. My numbers have them as a 16-plus point favorite in each of those games. Georgia's got at Mississippi State, at Kentucky versus Georgia Tech. My numbers have them as 13.5+ in each of those games. They're not losing another regular season game between here and there. So if you win this game, I think they're going to be in Atlanta at 12-0. And at that point, you've already booked your spot, in my opinion. So I think there's still a lot to play for, but I do hear your point of the loser still has a path. Absolutely.
I was just trying to be nice to the fans out there.
Well, see, I hate these teams. I hate these teams. So yeah,
I hate Tennessee's defense, and I have a rule: unless it's like a major misleading final score, if I faded the team the week before, I'm not going to get on them the next week because there's a reason I did. Tennessee's defense ranks 103rd against the pass. That's not good. It just takes a few hiccups of them on offense, and they can't catch up because the other team keeps scoring, right? That's what's keeping me away.
Tennessee's offense is phenomenal. They're off the charts. They're the best in the country by most metrics, including my own. The defense is cause for concern. To this point, it hasn't bitten them. I do think the defense has improved, I mean, if you will, a little bit as the season's gone on. Obviously, a great showing this past week against Kentucky. But I mean, it's still an area of relative concern. Again, we're talking about the best of the best of the best, and they are not in that level on the defensive side of the ball. We'll see if this Georgia offense can expose that this weekend, because that Georgia defense is going to be in a position where they might slow down that Tennessee offense more than anybody else has this year. At least that's kind of how it's shaping up. So we'll see.
I feel the same, and I think Georgia's defense is better than Alabama's. And if there's a couple hiccups on offense, that's the end of for Tennessee. Georgia's just going to keep scoring there. Let's move on to the next game. Wake Forest versus NC State. And you picked this one, Kelley. Wake Forest is a road chalk, -2. Total of this game is 54. Being that you picked it, you must have something to talk about.
Yeah, so I picked it, Kiev, really, to be honest, as you said, hey, Kelley, go ahead and pick a couple games. I picked it because it's a ranked matchup by the CFP. And, there's not a whole lot to be playing for in this division of the ACC. I mean, Clemson's got it wrapped up, and this is the Atlantic. The Coastal is kind of a train wreck. I mean, North Carolina, I guess, in the driver's seat there, but regardless, I think Clemson's going to be favored big time in the conference championship game. But this game still has intrigue because both of these teams can still achieve 10-win seasons, which to me, like for these programs, that should be considered a great years. And they both still have that opportunity at this point. I am a bit surprised here to see the number being Wake -4. My numbers actually like NC State to win this game, just straight up. I mean, I like them to win it outright. I know this is a different NC State team without having Leary, but that's been a while now. So to me, I like NC State to pull the upset here. I think it's a night game at NC State. Again, they've got still a lot to play for, even if they're not going to end up in Charlotte or in the college football playoff. I know the beginning of the season, there was some talk about NC State and Wake Forest, for that matter, since they brought back Sam Hartman. Could these teams be dark horses for the playoffs? I never bought into that. I tried to caution folks that were buying into that I did not think these rosters were of that talent level that you need to be in the playoff. But there's still a lot to play for. I think NC State's got some tough games coming up. They got Boston College next, but they should win that one easily. But at Louisville, at North Carolina, my numbers have them as underdogs in each of those games. Wake Forest, on the other hand, I have them as short favorites in each of their remaining games. So I do think if Wake Forest is able to get it done here, and Vegas thinks they will, I tend to disagree. But if Wake Forest is, I think that 10-win season becomes something that they can actually achieve. But I like NC State in this game, and I think it's a low-key, really interesting game in the ACC with a lot on the line for these two programs and the trajectory that they're trying to build to become contenders in the ACC on a regular basis moving forward.
It is. I agree. It's low key yet good. And it's funny that both teams are ranked. I disagree with NC State being ranked. And after what I saw last week with Wake Forest, I don't even know what the hell I was watching right there, man. It wasn't even just the interceptions. The 6 of them in 1.5, which we've never seen anything like that in our life. It wasn't just that. It was the fact that they ran the clock out on themselves the first half with 2 possessions. They did it with 2:30 left. I watched the game, and then they did it again, and then they could have kicked the field goal, but they ran the time off. I don't know what Clawson was doing, dude. It blew my mind.
It was rough. I mean, everything about that game, to your point, was rough for Wake Forest. Yeah, I mean, neither one. NC State, yeah, they won last week, but it was a 1-point win on, I think it was a Thursday night. It was a weeknight game, Thursday night maybe, against Virginia Tech. Like, Virginia Tech's not a very good team. I have them power rated kind of, around number 90. So you would expect a team like NC State to do a little bit better there. To your point about, I don't think either of these teams should be ranked. My most deserving rankings, I have NC State 25 and Wake Forest 26. So very close to where the committee does, actually, in terms of what I'm looking at there. But yeah, from a power rating standpoint, I have both these teams outside the top 30. I have NC State at number 33 this week and Wake Forest at number 35. So that's what kind of my numbers think from a power rating standpoint. Again, both of these teams down pretty significantly in the power ratings based on their performances last week, even though NC State got that win. And predictive metrics, we're not really looking at wins and losses, as you know, Kiev. We're looking at how do they perform and how can we expect them to perform moving forward. So both these teams taking a hit coming into this week, but still a really big game.
Well, if Devin Leary was actually playing this game, they'd be favored by 3.
Right.
And that's 7.5-point difference. That's a lot for a quarterback. Wake's got a 0.67 net yard per play advantage, but they also never lost their quarterback. And now NC State's kind of getting used to it, like you said. My number's 3.5. So it's not like I have a bunch of value here to make a bet, but it makes it a lean on NC State. And they can certainly ugly this thing up enough. This low total tells you that they can ugly it up to possibly, maybe upset them. So I'm still holding an under for Wake Forest for the season win total. So I'm kind of hoping anyway NC State gets this done. That was a rough start for me there. I didn't think obviously they're going to get their quarterback back, and they did right before the season started. So that was interesting. But I'll lean NC State with you, man. Let's move on to – go ahead.
I was just going to say, what was the season win total? I can give you what my numbers give you the chance of hitting that.
8.5.
It was 8.5. Okay, so they got to get to 8. They got to get to 9. You have the under. My numbers only give it a 38% chance to get to 9. So I think the numbers are in your favor now at this point. Obviously, this game's going to go a long way in deciding.
Yeah, this game's really going to go a long way. But they do have a tough finish here, I believe, on their schedule. If I can just quick pull it up here.
They got North Carolina at home, Syracuse at home, and at Duke. So I mean, you're probably gonna like the Duke chance at Duke a little bit, but my numbers have it as within a field goal, both at home to North Carolina and Syracuse. So
and Duke is a better team, so than they have been in the past. So
they are. I got them 61 is where I got them.
All right, 61. Not yet. They're not despicable, let's say.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next game. TCU, they are hosting Texas Tech. TCU is favored minus 9.5. The total is 69.5. It's a pretty big total here. So, I mean, the way I look at this game, it's like, seriously, what gives TCU? What the heck is going on? A little bit smoke and mirrorish themselves. I'm sure you might have gotten a few spats on Twitter with TCU fans. I have. So I know that. But they keep proving me wrong. But I think they have a great coach in Sonny Dykes. But they're another one of those teams, like a poor man's Tennessee, that has a bad defense and keeps getting by. Wait till their tough offensive game. And this could be it right now here, because they have a look ahead. They have Texas on deck, which is a much bigger, I guess, game to them than beating little old Texas Tech. TCU's offense has been incredible, like I said, but ranking 84th in EPA per play on defense is not going to get the job done throughout the whole season. Texas Tech, not the greatest season, but now Tyler Shook, I believe, is back. And their defense has really been kind of holding them up, ranking 22nd in success rate, 39th in EPA per play. Normally, you don't talk about Texas Tech having a defense, Kelley, but they kind of do this year. The big thing for me is the fact that when Shook is coming back, he will uplift this team, and he's a much better quarterback than Donovan and the other guy, I forgot his name, in my opinion. That's why he was the starter coming into this year. So he did tinker a few plays last week, but they weren't quite ready to put him in. And I think that this would be the spot that they could, I think, take advantage and get a big key win for this program. I know they're on the road at TCU, but this look ahead to Texas is massive. The Red Raiders are 6-0 against the spread their last 6 games following a loss. So a little trend to go with me. And I personally bought the number to 10. I paid 8 cents extra for it, minus 118. But I give it away at 9.5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my number. I'm with you on a lot of that. My numbers, I have very little betting value in this. They do like TCU by 10, and again, all my numbers are that I'm giving are rounded to the nearest half number, so it's actually a little bit less than that, but not quite to 9.5. So I do like TCU to cover this. I guess if I had to pick it, I don't feel great about that. To your point about this being a look ahead, I absolutely agree, and I think the one thing that's going to help TCU here, or Sonny Dykes here, maybe in this case in particular, is we had the committee's reveal this week, and TCU came in at number 7. If I'm Sonny Dykes, I'm saying, okay, look at this, guys. Yep, they have us number 7, the worst of the undefeateds, and behind one loss Alabama. I'm thinking that might be enough motivation to help offset the, hey, let's not worry about Texas. Let's worry about what the committee thinks of us right now. And that's, we're the worst of the undefeateds and behind a one loss already. I think that was probably my biggest takeaway from the committee rankings of overall disappointment. I think overall the committee got things very, very right for the most part. It's been interesting for me to watch since 2014, the committee's evolution and using analytics and math to inform their rankings. They are very much more aligned now with things like My Most Deserving or ESPN Strength of Record than they used to be. And I think that's a good thing. The biggest agreement I had here this week, I have TCU ranked number 3. Obviously, the committee has them at 7. Power rated, I have TCU number 12. So I don't think TCU is one of the 4 best or even one of the 10 best teams in the country for some of the reasons that you outlined there. But I do think they're better than Texas Tech. Texas Tech number 39 in my power ratings. Like I said, TCU by 10 is my number. It's a 77% win probability straight up for the Frogs. So I would lean TCU to cover, but I wouldn't feel very good about it. I think the number's just about right.
Buy that extra half a point is what I'd say.
Hey,
I will give that away. I'll give it away for 10 at the 10 for 2 stars, but I want you to buy that half point just to be sure. Texas Tech, this is the perfect spot for them. Possible upset in the making if this is a true look ahead. Let's stay in Texas then, my man. Let's move on to a game that you turned me on to look at. It is the Texas Longhorns versus Kansas State. And this is now 2.5. It was 2 a little bit earlier. It looks like maybe some Texas money came in, pushing it to 2.5. The total on this is pretty low for a Sarkisian type team, 54.5. So I have some thoughts on this one, but I'll let you go first since you picked it.
Yeah, I picked this one because, again, we got ranked versus ranked. I think this is going to go a long way in determining participants in the Big 12 championship game. These teams right now projected 2 and 3 in my future standings look. The winner here is going to have the inside track to that number 2 spot, of course, behind TCU. Texas is a team that I've taken a lot of heat for all year, having power rated so highly. They're like, Kelley, they have 3 losses. How do you think they're one of the 6 or 7 best teams in the country? It's at nauseum now of trying to defend Texas, so I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to say my numbers have them as the 6th best team in the country. I think they've been unlucky to lose some of the games that they've lost. Ewers going out versus Alabama, that field goal in overtime to Texas Tech. I think Texas is a better team than 5 and 3. I have them power rated number 6. I have Kansas State power rated 13. It's the best power rating that they've had all year, coming off of an absolute demolishment of Oklahoma State. I did not see that coming at all. But credit to them. It was incredible. I think this could potentially be a letdown spot for Kansas State, having come off that. But anytime you're playing Texas, I feel like teams get up for that. Texas coming off a bye, so they're rested. But yeah, for me, I like Texas in this game, but I only like them by 1.5. So I guess I'd be taking Kansas State and the points here. Again, I don't know how I feel about that. It is pretty close to the line, so there's not a lot of value. Texas coming off that bye. Kansas State, are they going to be able to get back up after what they did last week to Oklahoma State? I tend to think they will, because they know if we win this game, we've really put ourselves in a good position to be in Dallas for that Big 12 championship. And I think at the end of the day, that might be enough to drive them to keep it close here. I do still like Texas to win it outright, but I do think that Kansas State can cover the spread.
Where the heck is this Will Howard play coming from? You had years to prove yourself, and now that Adrian Martinez gets hurt, you look like a freaking star. I don't know what to believe here, man. Incredible. I mean, they just beat Oklahoma State made my ugly of the weekend, and they deserved it. But Kansas State's got the defense, and if they really have an offense, they will watch out. So what we're fighting here is the letdown spot for Kansas State versus Texas on the road. Right. Texas on the road, and that's why I bet Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago, and cashed that one because Texas on the road. Sorry, it's just bad, but. I mean, my power number, I had to downgrade Texas, and you're right. I've been one of those guys that had to defend Texas for a long time now. I have them close to TCU, like neck and neck in my power ratings, but it took a while, and I'm at the spread. I'm at Texas -2.5, but I don't know what to believe here. I think Ewers, it's a massive spot for them to show that they're the team that almost beat Bama.
Yep.
And then they're also the team that blew away Oklahoma. There's no Dylan Gabriel, but still, you shut them out. I mean,
Yep.
that takes defense to do that. So I think those two games really pushed our rating systems, Kelley, as an efficiency to make them a high power rated team. And that's what we've been dealing with all week, or all last couple of weeks. But I'm gonna stay away from this ugly game. I can find reasons why both teams could lose. So it's gonna be a great game though. For Big 12 matchup, I think it's gonna be massive for both these teams. Let's move on to this one: Clemson versus Notre Dame, and this is now down to +3.5. The total is 44.5. Now I made a play on this, and I saw the weather coming in, and I made a play, but unfortunately that number moved a lot. Fortunate for me, but unfortunate that I can't quite give out the value, but I still kind of like it at the number. I mean, there's going to be a lot of wind, and there's going to be some rain here going on in the Midwest. And what we always say this time of year, Kelley, watch out for weather. It changes games. It's a massive impact. But it's not like these two teams don't have a defense anyway. If you take away the passing game with 20-mile-per-hour winds, 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts, these teams know that they're going to be running the ball. They're going to stuff it. That's just pretty much what it's going to be, which is probably reason why the dog, Kelley, went from 4.5 down to 3.5. But Notre Dame ranks 107th in plays per game anyway. So they're not exactly that high tempo offense. They're pretty slow when they come to the line of scrimmage. They also only allow 22 points per game. They run the ball over 61% of the time. That's pretty high. Clemson, they're average when it comes to tempo, but in offense, not that great. 48th in success rate, 38th in EPA per play. Now, Uiagalelei has improved, but he's not. These are ACC opponents that have been terrible, man. We know the ACC isn't good. Notre Dame's actually got a stud defense. You saw Notre Dame go to North Carolina. This is a different in class that Clemson's been beaten, and that's why you got a short spread. But Clemson's defense, 23rd in success rate, allowing less than 3 yards per rush, 4.9 yards per play. This still spells the under at 44.5. I'll give it away under 44.5, but my number's 47.5. So there you go.
Love that. Way to get on it early there. You deserve it. I think the spread, I know you said it's shrunk. I think it should shrink even more. My numbers like Clemson to win this game, but they only favor the Tigers by 3. This is a Notre Dame team that I think from a power rating standpoint has been more highly power rated than most probably want to acknowledge all year. Again, it starts with, they lost to Ohio State and what most consider a decent showing for Notre Dame. But then that next week, right, they lose to Marshall, and then they lay the stinker against Stanford in week 7. And so what you've seen of Notre Dame, what you've heard of Notre Dame is, wow, man, they've lost to a couple bad teams. They've also won some good games. Like you said, they won at North Carolina. They won at Syracuse. They beat a BYU team who at the time was a decent team. They're certainly not a decent team anymore. I wouldn't argue. But this is a Notre Dame team I have power rated number 18. Clemson's number 7. But you throw in that home field advantage. You throw in some of those environmental factors that you talked about. I do think Clemson's going to find a way to get this done, but I think it's going to be a close one. I like Notre Dame in the points here. Again, not a ton of value given on this one where it is. But yes, I do think Clemson gets it done. It's a 59% win probability for the Tigers. And of note here, if Clemson gets through this game, looking at their remaining schedule, they've got Louisville, Miami, South Carolina all at home. My numbers like them by 10.5, 17, and 15.5 respectively in each of those. Clemson's chances to finish 12-0 go up dramatically if they win this weekend at Notre Dame. And then I do expect them to be favored in that ACC championship game, as I said, against really anybody looking like North Carolina right now. So Clemson, if folks who don't want to see Clemson in the playoff, you got to root for Notre Dame this weekend because this is going to be the Tigers' best. This is going to be their best chance to lose a game the rest of the way, in my opinion. Not to say they can't lay a stinker somewhere. We've seen that before, but I just think it's a good Clemson team. They're not great, but they're good, and they were one of my preseason picks to make the playoff. I'm not backing off that now.
I was about to say, if you're a Michigan or Ohio State fan, especially because Ohio State only beat Notre Dame by 11. You are going for Notre Dame this game.
Yep.
And even at Tennessee, Georgia, you get that one loss. You don't want Clemson to be undefeated and unscathed going in. USC, Oregon fans, they should be the same thing. TCU, they'll be cheering for Notre Dame. And that's why this is a really big marquee game of the weekend. So I'm glad we covered it. I'm hoping for low scoring, as you know, ugly it up a little bit, and no overtime. So we'll see if we can get that far in this game. Ready to get to the other big game of the week? FIU versus North Texas, right?
Let's get it. Yep, that's a huge one in Conference USA.
Yeah, massive. No, we're staying in the SEC, obviously. The 4 best SEC teams are playing each other, too, because I do put LSU's 4th now with what they've done lately. Alabama going to LSU. So we don't talk before the show, but I love the integrity of that. But I do have a play on this game, and I'm going to let you go first, Kelley, to see if it aligns or if it doesn't.
I hope it aligns here. I don't know what it is. As you said, I'm looking at the line I see right now is Alabama minus 13.5. So
yep.
My numbers, I don't think there's a ton of value here. My numbers like Alabama to win this game, but they only favor the Tide by 13. So I guess technically I'd be taking LSU in the points. I don't love that, just given that the high-powered capacity that Alabama has, but this game is at LSU. It is at night. Tiger Stadium at night is a very difficult place to play. Alabama's experienced that in recent years. Really, every time they go there, it's a tough game. So I think Alabama's the far superior team on a neutral field. I have them power rated number 2. I have LSU power rated number 11. So again, 2 of the best, 10, 11 teams in the country. LSU comes in number 10 in the committee's rankings. I'd have them number 15. So there's a little bit of discrepancy there. Alabama comes in at number 6. I have them number 4. So again, a little discrepancy, not much, but I think this Alabama offense is really, really good. I think the Alabama defense has the potential when they are committed to playing really, really well. LSU, though, I know they have the 2 losses, and the surprise of the week in week 1, losing to Florida State, it was a really close game. Obviously, there was some weirdness at the end. I think most people, myself included, just kind of expected LSU to perform better in that game. They've improved by leaps and bounds from the beginning of the season. I know they got their doors blown off against Tennessee. What we've come to find out is Tennessee is a really, really good team. It was surprising that happened at LSU. It was in the middle of the day, though, not a night game. So I don't know where you're going with your play here. I guess my numbers technically like LSU to cover this line, but I wouldn't feel great about it given where my numbers are, and it's going to be a phenomenal game. I just, from a betting standpoint, I'm not sure, but I'm curious. Where are you at, Kim?
Well, you definitely built it up for me. This total kind of tells it all. If you really look at it, it's 56.5 in an Alabama game. Why is it only 56.5? In an Alabama game here, and Alabama's not a 40-point favorite. Normally you see that kind of thing. Well, that kind of tells you that there's value possibly on the dog here. It's so weird for me, this Alabama team. I'm so back and forth with them, but something's different in this Bryce Young era, man. This era. It's like he plays down to his competition a lot. You saw that against Texas. You saw that against Texas A&M. That wasn't Bryce Young, but still, it was the backup. It was the whole Alabama. LSU last year almost beat them. LSU with a worse team and definitely a worse coach almost beat them. Tennessee, this year, of course, beat them. I mean, look, metrically, Bama's got a 2.11 yard per play advantage, and that's fantastic. But Alabama's also had an easier strength schedule, especially when it comes to the non-conference. They had some very easy games at Utah State. LSU just kind of creeping the last few weeks. They also have some really good metrics. I'm going to share my screen and look at some of the advanced metrics. I have a nice spreadsheet that kind of has it all laid out here. You got Alabama offensive success rate number 30. You got LSU and their offensive success rate's number 10. If you just look at the same thing on the defensive side, Alabama 17, LSU 40. That's not a massive difference here, and you got LSU that had to, get through some of those big games. What they did to Mississippi, to Ole Miss, I thought that was very impressive. They did have the hiccup against Tennessee, they destroyed Florida. Like they looked like Georgia when they played Florida, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really intrigued by a lot of that. Look at Alabama's offensive line yards, 120th. Their offensive line is just not doing it. They're not getting as much push. A lot of these advanced metrics really lean towards LSU. So I'm taking a shot at LSU. My power ratings are about 12.5 actually for this game. But you also have to remember that LSU is coming off the bye here. And they had this game circled all year. I mean, how could you not? Yep. This is the game that could, get them going here as a program. It's also a night game in Death Valley. So I know Clemson and them call their home Death Valley, but it is what it is. A much worse LSU team almost got them last year.
Yep.
I think Bama's weakness too against running quarterbacks. Jalen Daniels rushing the football. He's great at it. And they just have really gotten flying lately. I'm taking the points, man, for 2.5 stars.
Love it. Yep.
Now, no disagreement. You're a half point off, and I'm only a point off. But you got to look at the spot. You got to look at the fact that all the pressure's on Alabama now that they got that loss. At LSU sitting at home, sitting pretty. Crowd's going to be absolutely fired up, liquored up. Oh, it's going to be a fun one, man. I'm very excited for this game. Let's do a little hodgepodge real quick here. I'll pull up. I wanted to talk about my Wisconsin Badgers a little bit. I find this spread a little bit funny. I think it's funny because it's slightly like 2-3 weeks ago, you probably would have thought Maryland, would have been a pick 'em against the Wisconsin Badgers, and they're not. Wisconsin's getting more credit. Now it's 5. It was 5.5. So it looks like a little money came out of Maryland. I think this is a touch too big. But also, I think it's also the perception of Leonard, coming in. Paul Chryst was fired. The dude was stubborn, kind of a lunkhead. I think he was kind of lethargic, in his older years, getting paid a lot of money. His buyout was like $16 million. But you got a young Jim Leonard here, and I don't think he's taking crap. I think he's got this team motivated. I think he's getting them mistake-free. And maybe this is the Graham Mertz that you're starting to see that we were all hoping for a couple weeks ago. So Wisconsin's getting respect in the market. Unfortunately, because of their season, Kelley, I can't get to 5. I mean, I'm still at like 3.5 here. But it also goes to show you that a lot of people are not buying Maryland's BS, even though they're in the Big Ten East. Any quick thoughts about this one?
I'm right there with you. My numbers like this. Wisconsin 3.5. So I think 5.5. That's too much. Both these teams coming off a bye into this week. So Wisconsin at home, I think they're going to do enough to get the job done. But I do think that number is too high. I've got the Badgers power rated number 22, which is a nice bump up from where they were, after they started the season 2-3 with some losses. Washington State, Ohio State, no shame in that. Illinois, maybe that's not quite as bad of a loss as we thought at the time. But power rated number 22. Maryland having a nice season in their own right, 6-2 losses to Michigan. Again, no shame in that. The Purdue one, they'd probably like to have back, but Purdue still got a chance to win the West. They got a big game against Illinois coming up soon. So I have Maryland power rated number 29. This is a really, really big game in the Big Ten. Maybe not for the conference standings and playing in Indianapolis, but just in terms of what both of these teams are still trying to achieve. Jim Leonard, of course, trying to put his stamp on the program as the head coach and earn that role in a full-time capacity. And Maryland, still has a chance to win 10 games. I know it's not likely. They've got to go on the road to Penn State after this weekend. They've got to play Ohio State at home. So they're going to be big dogs in both of those games. But they still only have 2 losses. It's a Maryland program that is better than they have been in recent years. I mean, it's not too long ago that Maryland was talked about with Indiana and Rutgers and some of those teams, Northwestern, that you talk about kind of at the bottom of the Big Ten, even though somehow Northwestern ends up in Indy about every other year or every third year. So Pat Fitzgerald just finds a way. And then the next year they win one game like right now. So it's a down year for Northwestern. But this will be a good game. I like your Badgers to win. I don't like them to cover.
Yeah, me too. How ugly you want to get here? Because there's some ugly games. Do you want to go Florida, Texas A&M ugly, or do you want to go Minnesota, Nebraska ugly here?
I'll go wherever you want to go. I just got to pull it up here on my screen, whichever one we're talking about.
No problem. Let's go Minnesota, Nebraska.
Okay.
Well, it's so funny because it's like, how big of a number do you have to put up here? How bad is Nebraska? When are they going to have that kind of like the kids show up one more time for the year?
Yep. Yep. No,
How many?
what's the
Go
number?
ahead.
What's the number here? What are we
It's
looking at?
16. It's 16
It's
plus
16.
16. They're a home dog.
Yep.
It's an earlier game, but a home dog to Minnesota at plus 16 with a low total of 46.5. I mean, we saw what Minnesota did to Michigan State on the road.
Yep.
But that's going to happen from time to time. Michigan State is not a good team at all. They did have that good win against Wisconsin, though. It went to overtime. It was their homecoming. But man, I'm just upset with myself because you can make this 21. I still probably won't bet Nebraska, Kelley.
So I don't disagree with you on the principle of trying to bet Nebraska during a year in which they have struggled very mightily. And it's not like last year's team. Last year's team lost a lot of games, but from a predictive standpoint, they were still a quote good team. Like I think I had them power rated at the end of last year somewhere around number 30. I don't remember the exact number, but it was in that range. And they were a 3-9 football team, power rated number 30. There was a lot of bad luck for that team last year. Ultimately, it ends up costing Scott Frost his job. This year started much the same. But this year is not that. It's not that. This team losing a lot of games, but they're not a good team, to your point. I have them power rated number 75, but I actually only have this number at 11. So I like the math says take Nebraska in the points here, but my brain says don't you dare touch Nebraska because this is just a woeful team. And the last two times we've seen them have been losing efforts with a bye smashed in between. Minnesota, they had a rough stretch there, losing to Purdue, Illinois, Penn State. They bounced back last week with the shutout win over Rutgers, but Rutgers not a good team. So, Minnesota's going to win this game. It's a matter of how much. My numbers don't think they're going to cover that big spread, but I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if they do. So, again, I'm kind of on the fence there. I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but numbers say take Nebraska in the points. My brain says probably just stay away from this one.
Yeah, and looking at the injury report, Casey Thompson is questionable. So that's where you get the 5-6 points right there, Kelley. And that's why of the adjustment. A lot of people don't think he's going to play. There's also a couple receivers and a running back for Nebraska. This could be a skeleton crew. You don't know what's going on. And that's another reason why it's big stay away because of those injuries. What about Florida, Texas A&M? It almost sounded like you wanted me to bring that one up first.
Well, I think it's just interesting to me as I scroll over to that. The Texas A&M piece is funny because in the preseason, I put out, my realistic expectations for teams, and I had 8-4 for Texas A&M as the most likely outcome. And Texas A&M fans were all over me saying, "Are you crazy? Are you kidding me? Have you seen this class we have coming in? We have the highest paid coach in the country." All these things, and I just kind of sat there and said, "Yeah, I see all that. I know all that. You also play in the SEC West. A lot of this talent's really young. They haven't been in some of these environments before." Now they can't even go 8-4 because they've already lost 5 games. So, like, to me, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so where are all these Texas A&M fans now? Well, they're probably all logged off Twitter for the rest of the year. But yeah, I still, with that said, Texas A&M, I still have them power rated inside my top 30. They have lost 4 consecutive games. They are at home in this one. I do like them to win this game. I'm trying to see, you got the spread there is -3. I do like them by more than that, actually. I do like A&M by about 5. Florida is a team coming off back-to-back losses, against LSU and then at the cocktail party last week against Georgia. A team that started the year really well with that win against Utah. Then they dropped Kentucky, and they've kind of gone back and forth since, picking up wins against teams they should and losing to the better teams that they played. So I don't know. There's only a 76% chance that Florida gets bowl eligible. I don't expect them to win this game. Then they got South Carolina, Vanderbilt. You really got to take care of business in those because you close with Florida State. And my numbers have you as about a 5.5 point dog there. So I think this is a tale of 2 programs. I expect Texas A&M to win this game, but I do think Florida, with the coaching staff they have in there now and the culture that they're trying to build, might be better positioned for success moving forward. One, they're in the East, and I know divisions might go away as Texas and Oklahoma come in, but they're in the East for now, which is the easier of the 2. And A&M, I just don't know. I mean, all these recruits that they've brought in, are they going to stick around? You've got some players suspended now. I don't know. I don't know what the future of Texas A&M holds. They have all the money in the world. They have all the support in the world from their fans. It's an incredible environment every single weekend. It doesn't matter who they're playing or what the spread is or what the team's record is. It's great. But yeah, I don't know. It could, if A&M loses this game, which again, I've just said I don't think they will, but if they do, now you're sitting there with 6 losses, you're 3-6, and it's like, is Jimbo fired? I mean, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to pay that buyout, but they have the deepest pockets in college football, it seems. So who knows?
Yeah, I don't even know why they have the deepest pockets in college football. It just
Oil
makes
money? I don't know.
it makes no sense to me. But they have a ton of them, ton of boosters, and metrically, I mean, the yards per play is Florida. Both strengths of schedules very hard. Uh, Florida, I've seen them against the run. They look terrible. But I will say, even though they lost by 22, the spread was 22 and a half, 23 points against Georgia. I did see some flashes. They did blitz well last game, and nothing from Texas A&M looks good, but the spot really favors Texas A&M. I mean, the spot itself. That's why you're laying minus 125 on a 3. You know what? I don't want to lay minus. I don't want to lay juice on Texas A&M. They don't deserve to have juice on any number, in my opinion. Yeah, it's like one of those teams. I could see them losing to Florida. I could see Richardson getting together. I like Coach Napier better than Jimbo now. I do, especially with what he did with Louisiana, man. So yeah, this is just wanted to stay away, but I wanted to bring it up. A nice big ugly game. Ohio State at Northwestern. If Ohio State blew out Penn State a little bit better than what they did, instead of actually being metrically equal and the turnovers doing it, I might be betting Northwestern at a plus 38. But geez, this could be like, all right, let's get ourselves fixed this week. Maybe they even bring back Smith and the Jigba for once. I mean, I almost feel like they're saving him for the Michigan game in the playoffs. But that's why I'm not going to bet Northwestern plus 38 at home. But it wouldn't shock me if Northwestern really got up for this game and, just kind of like did something the first half. I mean, maybe a first half play or something.
I like Ohio State to win this one, obviously, by 36.5, though. So I think the number is right around right. Anytime you're getting spreads that big, though, I mean, a garbage time TD, backdoor, like you see it all the time in betting. That's why I kind of tend to shy away from betting in general, just because of the bad beats and all that. But yeah, it's a huge spread. Ohio State's going to roll. It's just how bad do they want to put the foot down, and can Northwestern show a pulse, because they've been a team that really, since that week 1 upset win of Nebraska out in Ireland, I mean, they've just done nothing. So
yeah, my number's 34.25.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not like you're getting a massive blow at value. When it comes to those high spreads, you need a bigger defense too, or a bigger difference too.
Yep.
So last game, let's just quick look at is Friday, Oregon State versus Washington. This is so intriguing to me because I like both coaches, I like both teams, but what we don't know about Oregon State is the quarterback situation. I believe the last injury update I have, and we'll just see what Covers has. I go from multiple places for injuries, and a lot of stuff doesn't get reported with Covers. But Chance Nolan, still questionable here. If he plays, I would take 4.5. I'll tell you that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I've got Oregon State power rated number 42. I've got Washington number 36. So I do expect this to be a really competitive game. It's always fun out in the Pac-12. I'm with you, though. I think that's going to be the telltale. I don't have a strong lean in this game. I think the number is probably about right. And so, yeah, it's the Pac-12. I tell you, they're having a bit of a renaissance out there with, Oregon, Utah, UCLA, USC, all being in that mix or the conversation of the CFP, all in the mix for the Pac-12 championship. Obviously, they've done away with divisions, so it's just the 2 best conference records, making it exciting. And I am going to try to enjoy the current makeup of the conference, because I know you're a Big Ten guy with Wisconsin. I'm a Big Ten guy, went to Purdue. I understand why the change is happening with USC and UCLA. I don't like it. I think it's counter to tradition of college football, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have those teams playing in the heartland on a regular basis. But hey, money drives everything. Money talks. So that's not the game we're talking about, I know. But the Pac-12 is just it's exciting this year, that's for sure. And this Oregon State Washington game will definitely be a good one.
Money ruins everything. So before you get your Powerball tickets today, just remember, money ruins everything. Don't be bummed out when you lose. All right. And saying that, man, we are out of time, Kelley. Thank you so much for coming on this show. Where could our listeners and viewers get your great information and numbers?
Absolutely, Kev. I really appreciate you having me on. You can find me on Twitter at Kelley Ford Ratings, the podcast at We Hate Your Team _ on social media. You can find that podcast, We Hate Your Team, wherever you find your podcast. I also have a website, KFordRatings.com. So any of those places you can find me. I really appreciate the time again, Kiev. This was a lot of fun, and let's enjoy another great week of college football.
Loved every second of it, Kelley. Make sure you guys check out Kelley at K Ford Ratings.